Hi everyone, welcome to the channel After All That Years.
I was sitting at my kitchen table this morning, holding an empty coffee cup and staring out at the fresh snow that had fallen overnight. The neighborhood looked peaceful, untouched by the disaster that had just blown through my life. But the quiet wasn't comforting, it was suffocating. Last night, my wife Eleanor stumbled through our front door at 3 a.m, reeking of alcohol and cologne that definitely wasn't mine. We were supposed to spend New Year's Eve together. Just the two of us, she'd said. A quiet night at home, reflecting on the past year and making plans for the future. No parties, no crowds, just us. But at the last minute, some co-workers invited her out, and suddenly those plans changed. When I questioned whether she should go, she turned on me with a venom I hadn't seen before. "You don't control me, James," she snapped, grabbing her purse. "It's just one party. Stop being such a bore." So I stayed home like an idiot, waiting for her to come back. When Eleanor finally did stumble in, she was a complete mess. Her hair was wild, makeup smeared everywhere, and her dress was wrinkled in ways that told me she hadn't been sitting at a bar nursing drinks. But what made my blood run cold was the dark purple bruise on her neck, a hickey that she made no attempt to hide. "Happy New Year, sweetheart," she slurred, nearly falling over her own feet as she laughed. I stood there in the hallway, feeling like I was looking at a stranger. "What's that on your neck?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the rage building inside me. "What?" She blinked, then stumbled to the mirror by the front door. Her fingers touched the mark, and for just a second I saw panic flash across her face. Then she actually smirked. "Oh, this? Just had a little fun tonight. Don't be such a prude, James. It's New Year's." Her words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "What do you mean, a little fun?" I demanded, my voice getting louder. "Eleanor, you have someone else's mark on your neck. That doesn't happen from shaking hands or making a toast." She shrugged, kicking off her shoes and tossing her coat in the corner. "Relax, it didn't mean anything. God, you're so dramatic sometimes. It was just a party." But it wasn't just a party. We both knew that. And there she stood, completely unapologetic, brushing off her betrayal like it was spilled wine. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. I just turned around and walked away, leaving her laughing to herself in the hallway. That night, while she passed out on the couch still wearing her party dress, I sat in our bedroom trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Maybe Eleanor had always been like this, and I'd been too blind or too in love to see it clearly. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hickey, that smug smile, and the casual way she dismissed me like I was some kind of joke. Her voice kept echoing in my head. "Relax, it didn't mean anything." By the time dawn broke, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to beg for explanations or apologies. I wasn't going to sit there and let her chip away at whatever dignity I had left. I was going to leave. No goodbyes, no long explanations. She wanted to treat me like I was invisible. Fine. I'd become exactly that. While Eleanor snored on the couch downstairs, I packed a bag with essentials, some clothes, my laptop, my wallet. I didn't have a detailed plan yet, but I knew staying wasn't an option anymore. Before leaving, I stood in the doorway of the living room, watching her sleep. Her face looked so peaceful, so innocent. It was almost enough to make me doubt what I was doing. Almost. But then I saw that faint bruise on her neck, the one she hadn't even tried to conceal, and any trace of doubt vanished. Without a word, I slipped out the door into the freezing January morning. My breath formed clouds in front of me as I walked to my car, the weight of everything finally starting to hit me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't coming back. And that's how it started. That's how I ended up here, sitting in this cheap motel room miles away from home, wondering what comes next. But as much as I hated Eleanor in that moment, as much as I wanted to forget her and everything she'd done, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't know it at the time, but leaving wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. The motel room was everything you'd expect from a place that charged by the night. Faded wallpaper, musty air, and a bed that squeaked if you so much as breathed on it. But it was temporary, and that's exactly what I needed. A place to think, to breathe, somewhere far away from Eleanor and the hollow shell of what our marriage had become. Those first few hours after I left were a blur. I drove aimlessly, the heater in my old car working overtime against the bitter January cold. My phone kept buzzing in the cup holder, message after message from Eleanor. "Where are you? James, this isn't funny. Come home. "You're being ridiculous." I couldn't bring myself to answer. What would I even say? That I'd finally had enough? That the sight of her with another man's mark on her neck was burned into my memory? That I couldn't stand being the punchline to her twisted joke anymore? Eventually the messages stopped. That should have been a relief, but it wasn't. The silence just made my thoughts louder. By the time I found this motel, I was running on empty, physically and emotionally. I paid cash for the night and didn't even bother unpacking. I just collapsed on the bed, stared at the water-stained ceiling, and let the full weight of everything crash down on me. For the first time in hours, I let myself cry. The next morning brought a harsh kind of clarity. As much as I wanted to disappear completely, I knew I couldn't, not yet. Eleanor was the type of person who needed to control every narrative, and if I stayed off the radar too long, she'd find a way to spin this whole situation to make herself look like the victim. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through the dozens of missed calls and texts. Most were from Eleanor, but a few were from friends I hadn't heard from in months, suddenly very interested in my whereabouts. One message caught my attention, though, from her co-worker Sandra. "James, I don't know if I should be telling you this, but you deserve to know. Call me when you can." My heart started racing as I stared at the message. Sandra was one of Eleanor's few friends that I actually respected. She was direct, honest, and didn't play games. If she was reaching out to me, it had to be serious. I hesitated for a moment before dialing her number. "James," she answered immediately, her voice tight with nerves. "Sandra, what's going on?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. She let out a long sigh. "I've been debating whether to tell you this all morning, but after what I saw last night, I couldn't stay quiet. Eleanor. She was with someone else at the party." My stomach dropped. "I figured as much," I said bitterly, thinking of the hickey. "Do you know who?" There was a long pause. "James, it wasn't just one person." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" "She was all over this guy, her new boss, Marcus. Everyone at the party saw it. But later in the night, she disappeared upstairs with him, and then she was with someone else too. A guy named Trevor. People were talking about it all night, James. I thought she was just drunk and making a fool of herself, but it was worse than that." My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to drive back home and demand answers. But I forced myself to stay calm. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked. "Because you don't deserve this," Sandra said firmly, "and because Eleanor isn't going to tell you the truth. She never will. I thought you should hear it from someone who saw it firsthand." I thanked her and hung up, my mind reeling. Eleanor hadn't just crossed a line, she had obliterated it. This wasn't a drunken mistake or a moment of poor judgment. This was deliberate, calculated betrayal. Later that afternoon, I got a text from Eleanor. "I know you're upset, but can we talk? Please." I didn't respond. Instead, I started going through our bank accounts. If Eleanor was this brazen with her behavior, I had no doubt she'd try something financially too. Sure enough, there were charges from last night. Drinks, dinner, even a hotel room. But the final charge made my blood run cold. It was from a jewelry store. She had bought something expensive, very expensive, while I was home alone, waiting for her. I sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about humiliation, manipulation, and greed. She hadn't just cheated on me, she had flaunted it, spending our money while doing it. I closed my laptop, my mind spinning with possibilities. I didn't know what my next move was going to be, but I knew one thing for certain. Eleanor had seriously underestimated me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I stared at the motel ceiling, the dim afternoon light filtering through the cheap curtains. Sandra's words kept replaying in my head like a broken record. She disappeared upstairs with him, and then she was with someone else too. It wasn't just a hickey, it wasn't just a drunken mistake, it was deliberate, planned, disgusting. Eleanor had always been good at hiding things, or maybe I'd been too blind to see the truth. But now everything was falling into place, and I was starting to see her for who she really was. A selfish, manipulative woman who didn't care about the destruction she left behind. I grabbed my phone again, this time scrolling through our joint accounts and subscriptions. Eleanor loved her luxuries, her rewards for working so hard. But I knew the truth now, her job wasn't the only thing keeping her busy. It didn't take long to find the cracks. There were unexplained charges on her credit card, memberships to spas I'd never heard of, and subscriptions to dating apps, ones she had clearly hidden from me. My stomach turned as I stared at the evidence. Each transaction felt like a slap in the face. I knew I couldn't confront her directly yet. Eleanor was like a cornered animal. She'd lash out, twist the narrative, and somehow make me look like the bad guy. No, I needed to be smart about this. I needed to gather more proof. The next day, I paid a visit to a private investigator. His office was small, tucked away in a strip mall, but his reputation was solid. His name was Victor, a no-nonsense guy in his 50s with a thick Boston accent and a face that looked like it had seen its fair share of dirty secrets. "So what's the story?" he asked, leaning back in his chair as I handed him the details of Eleanor's behavior. "My wife," I said, the words tasting bitter. "She's been cheating on me. I have some evidence, but I need more. I need everything." Victor nodded, jotting down notes. "You want pictures, videos, records, the whole 9 yards?" "Yes," I said firmly, "whatever you can get. I want to know every lie she's told, every secret she's kept. I'm done being in the dark." "Got it," he said, sliding a contract across the desk. "I'll start right away. Give me a few days, and I'll have something for you." As I left his office, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and something close to relief. For the first time in years, I was taking control. Back at the motel, I tried to distract myself, but Eleanor wasn't making it easy. She had ramped up her messages, alternating between apologies and insults. "I don't know what your problem is, but you need to grow up. Fine, if you're going to be a child about this, I'm done trying. James, come on, let's talk. I miss you." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every time I thought about her smirking face, the Hickey and Sandra's words, my blood boiled. Later that night, I got a call from Victor. "James, you're not going to believe this," he said, his voice low. "Your wife's got more skeletons in her closet than I expected." "What did you find?" I asked, my heart racing. "She's been meeting up with at least 2 guys regularly. One's her boss, Marcus, I think you mentioned him, and the other is some guy named Trevor. But here's the kicker, she's been bragging about it to her friends. She thinks she's untouchable." I clenched my fist, my knuckles turning white. "Anything else?" "Plenty," Victor said, "but I think you should see it for yourself. I'll send over the files." When the email came through, I hesitated before opening it. My gut told me it was going to hurt, but I needed to see the truth. The first file was a series of photos. Eleanor in a restaurant, laughing with Marcus as they leaned in far too close. Eleanor in a parking lot, kissing Trevor like a teenager at prom. Eleanor entering a hotel with Marcus, her arm wrapped around his waist. The second file was worse. It was a video, taken from a distance, but clear enough to see Eleanor sitting with her friends at a bar, talking animatedly. "He's so clueless," Eleanor said, laughing. "James just believes whatever I tell him. Honestly, it's kind of pathetic. He probably thinks I'm out late because of work." One of her friends chimed in, "Aren't you worried he'll find out?" Eleanor rolled her eyes. "Please. Even if he does, what's he going to do? Cry about it? He's too weak to leave me. I've got him wrapped around my finger." The room spun as I watched the video. Weak. That's how she saw me. That's what she thought of me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the desk in the motel room, going over everything I had learned. Eleanor thought she was untouchable, that she could humiliate me and get away with it. But she was wrong. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. Not anymore. I didn't know what my next move was, but I knew one thing for sure. Eleanor's reign of manipulation was coming to an end, and she wasn't going to see it coming. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The fog of shock and sadness had lifted, replaced by something sharper, determination. Eleanor had underestimated me for years, but now I had the tools to take control. No more begging for answers, no more letting her humiliate me. The files Victor sent me were more than just proof of her infidelity. They were ammunition. Every smirk, every kiss, every insult she threw at me was documented and ready to be used. But I wasn't about to confront her with it just yet. Eleanor was cunning, and I needed to be one step ahead. First, I went back through our finances. The jewelry purchase still bothered me. What was she buying, and for whom? I pulled up the transaction details and, with a little digging, found the store's phone number. When I called, I kept my voice calm and casual. "Hi, this is James. My wife Eleanor made a purchase from your store recently, but I think she may have used the wrong card. Can you tell me what the item was?" The clerk hesitated for a moment before responding. Of course, sir. It was a men's watch. Platinum, custom engraved. My stomach sank. Engraved with what? To Marcus, my rock. Love always, Eleanor. I clenched my fist, my anger barely contained. She had bought an expensive watch for her boss with my money. Thank you, I said, my voice tight. I hung up and took a deep breath, my mind racing. Eleanor wasn't just cheating on me. She was funneling our hard-earned money into her little affairs, showering her lovers with gifts, while I sat at home, oblivious. I wasn't going to confront her about it yet, though, not until I had everything in place. The next step in my plan was securing my own future. I didn't trust Eleanor to handle things peacefully, especially not after what Victor had uncovered. So I reached out to a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Catherine, who came highly recommended by a friend. When I explained the situation to her, she didn't mince words. James, your wife sounds like the kind of person who thrives on control. If you want to walk away from this marriage with your dignity and finances intact, you'll need to act fast. What do I need to do? I asked. First, we freeze the joint accounts. If she's already misusing your money, we can stop her before she drains everything. Second, gather every piece of evidence you have, proof of infidelity, financial misuse, anything that shows she's breached the trust in your marriage. The more we have, the stronger your case will be. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time in days. And what about the house? I asked. I don't want her keeping it. Catherine smiled faintly. Don't worry. With everything you've told me, we'll make sure she doesn't walk away with more than she deserves. Her confidence was contagious, and for the first time in days, I felt like I had a shot at reclaiming my life. That evening, I returned to the motel and went through the files again. Each piece of evidence was like a puzzle piece, and the picture they painted was damning. Eleanor's affairs weren't just a betrayal of our marriage, they were a blatant mockery of everything I thought we had built together. I started drafting my next steps. The first move would be freezing the accounts, just as Catherine suggested. The second would be ensuring Eleanor's secrets came to light, not just for her sake, but for mine. She had humiliated me, dismissed me, treated me like I was nothing. But when the truth came out, she wouldn't be laughing anymore. 2 days later, I got a call from Victor. James, I've got something new for you, he said, his tone serious. What is it? I asked, my heart racing. It's about Marcus, he said. Turns out he's not just your wife's boss, he's married too. And his wife has no idea what he's been up to. I froze, the implications sinking in. If Marcus's wife knew about his affair with Eleanor, it could change everything. Do you have a way to contact her? I asked. Victor chuckled. Already ahead of you. Her name's Rebecca, and I've got her number right here. I hesitated for a moment. Reaching out to her felt like crossing a line, but at the same time she deserved to know the truth just as much as I did. And if exposing Marcus helped dismantle Eleanor's little fantasy world, it was a win-win. I thanked Victor and hung up, staring at the number on my screen. My hand hovered over the call button, my mind racing. Finally, I took a deep breath and hit dial. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered. Hello? Hi, is this Rebecca? I asked, my voice steady. Yes, who's this? My name is James, I said. I think we need to talk. It's about your husband and my wife. There was a long pause on the other end before she replied, her voice tight. What about them? I told her everything. By the time the call ended, Rebecca was furious, not at me, but at Marcus. She thanked me for telling her and promised to get in touch if she found out anything else. Hanging up, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Eleanor had spent years tearing me down, but now her perfect little world was beginning to crack. And this was only the beginning. The call with Rebecca was a game-changer. She had been blindsided just like me, but instead of wallowing in shock, she promised to act swiftly. Marcus doesn't know what's coming, she said before hanging up. I almost felt sorry for the guy. Almost. Now I just had to wait. It didn't take long. The very next evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Eleanor. James, we need to talk. Call me now. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Had Rebecca already confronted Marcus? Or was this about the joint account I had followed Catherine's advice and frozen earlier that day, effectively cutting off Eleanor's access to the money she'd been so carelessly spending? I ignored her text, but not for long. The phone rang, Eleanor's name lighting up the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered, keeping my voice as calm as possible. What do you want, Eleanor? James, what the hell is going on? she snapped, her tone sharp and accusatory. Why is our account frozen? I tried to pay for groceries today and my card got declined. Interesting, I said, feigning indifference. Maybe it's because you've been using our money to buy gifts for your boyfriend. Or should I say boyfriends? There was a beat of silence, and then she laughed, cold, dismissive. Oh, don't start with this again, James. You're being ridiculous. Marcus is just a friend, and I don't know what Sandra told you, but she's always had a thing for stirring up drama. Save it, Eleanor, I cut her off. I've got pictures, videos, and receipts. I know everything. The jewelry, the hotel rooms, the dating apps. You really thought I wouldn't figure it out? Her voice faltered, but she recovered quickly. And what? You think freezing the account is some kind of power move? Grow up, James. You're acting like a child. Maybe, I said, my voice steady. But at least I'm not the one sneaking around, humiliating my spouse, and spending money that doesn't belong to me. I hung up before she could respond, my hand shaking slightly as I set the phone down. The rush of adrenaline was almost overwhelming. For the first time in years, I had stood up to Eleanor, and it felt good. The fallout didn't stop there. A few hours later, I got another call, this time from Victor. James, you're not going to believe this, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Looks like Marcus's wife Rebecca went nuclear. She's kicked him out of the house, and from what I hear, she's planning to file for divorce. Good for her, I said, unable to hide the satisfaction in my voice. That's not all, Victor continued, words getting around at their company too. Marcus's position might be in jeopardy. I couldn't help but laugh. Eleanor had hitched her wagon to Marcus, thinking he was her ticket to a glamorous life, and now it was all falling apart. As the night wore on, I realized something. Eleanor was about to experience what it felt like to lose control. And for someone like her, that was the worst punishment of all. The next morning, I woke up to a string of desperate messages from Eleanor. She had gone from angry and dismissive to frantic and pleading, a shift that made me realize she was finally starting to feel the weight of her actions. James, please, can we just talk? I messed up, okay? Let's fix this. I don't know what you're trying to do, but freezing the account is cruel. I need access to the money. You're overreacting. Let's sit down and figure this out. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent all her messages to Catherine. She had told me to document everything, and I wasn't about to let Eleanor wriggle out of this with her fake apologies and crocodile tears. By the afternoon, Eleanor showed up at the motel. I don't know how she found me, but seeing her standing there in the parking lot, clutching her coat against the cold, was both surprising and infuriating. James, she called, her voice trembling, please, can we just talk? I didn't want to cause a scene, so I stepped outside, keeping a safe distance. What do you want, Eleanor? I asked, my tone flat. She looked disheveled, her usual confidence replaced with something close to panic. You're being so unfair, she said, her voice breaking. I know I've made mistakes, but we can get through this. We've been together for so long. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I crossed my arms, my expression cold. It used to mean something, Eleanor. Before you decided to throw it all away for some cheap thrills. Her face crumpled, but I wasn't falling for it. It wasn't like that, she said, tears streaming down her face. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. Don't, I interrupted, my voice sharp. Don't insult me by pretending this was a one-time mistake. I know about Marcus. I know about Trevor. I know about the money you've been spending, and I know about the watch you bought for Marcus. You're Rock, right? You've been lying for months, Eleanor. She froze, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for an excuse. James, please, she said finally. I was lost. I was stupid, but I love you. I really do. I almost laughed. You love me? Is that what you tell Marcus and Trevor too? Do you love them when you're sneaking around behind my back? She stepped closer, but I held up a hand, stopping her. It's over, Eleanor. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The accounts are frozen, and I'm filing for divorce. You can't manipulate your way out of this one. Her tears turned to anger in an instant. You're being ridiculous. You're going to ruin everything over one mistake. This isn't one mistake, I said, my voice rising. This is who you are, Eleanor. And I refuse to be your doormat anymore. She stood there for a moment, stunned into silence. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed off, her heels clicking against the icy pavement. That night, I got another call from Victor. James, you're going to love this, he said, his voice brimming with amusement. Marcus just got fired. Word about the affair got out at the office, and they decided he was more trouble than he was worth. I couldn't help but grin. Eleanor had hitched her future to Marcus, and now he was just as broken as the life she had tried to build with him. "Thanks for the update, Victor," I said, hanging up with a sense of satisfaction. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one being played. The tables had turned, and Eleanor was finally facing the consequences of her actions.